When you are doing cold shower or an ice bath and you are shaking, panicking, shivering, breathing hard, hyperventilating, if you are trying to fight the cold, that's not what it's supposed to be about. It is not a test of toughness. It's a training for your nervous system. And arguably, it's the most powerful training for your nervous system. And the main goal is something most people don't even talk about. Through the cold exposure, we want to reach certain brain state on a specific wavelength of what brain is producing that is normally not accessible. Or if it is, it's in a very limited capacity. And if we are able to reach there, everything changes, brain rewires, and something amazing happens. My name is Paolo, and today I'll break down everything you need to know about cold exposure and effects that go way past the physical benefits or cool Instagram post. If you look online, the cold exposure is usually presented like this. It's people jumping into either freezing lake or some bathtub in a backyard, or even into the tubes in the longevity centers. They go in, hyperventilating, shaking, shivering. They're gritting their teeth, and you can see in their eyes that it's not really pleasant experience at all. And yeah, it makes sense. They are in the freezing water, so they are suffering. But this is very limiting view on what we actually want to and can reach through the cold exposure. Maybe you even tried it yourself. You went to a place, you got access for 10 or 15 minutes to an ice bucket with a very universal advice, focus on the breathing, and maybe you didn't even get any advice. Because of this shallow approach, eventually after one or maybe two experiences like this, people just give up and they say the cold exposure is not for them. All credit to those who are actually doing it and teaching it properly. But the problem, the challenge is not the cold itself. The problem is the approach and the process. And if we do the process right, this can be a completely different experience. For some people, almost transcendental. Cold exposure is not about suppressing the discomfort and trying to meditate the pain or the cold away. As my mentor Julian says, you cannot namaste the bear away. The threat is real. What we actually want is to regulate the response, not to go away from it, but go through it. When body enters cold or freezing water, all systems go to full panic. Heart rate goes up, hyperventilating starts, and all the systems are screaming, get out, this is dangerous, you will not survive this. And if you experienced this before, you know that you don't actually even feel cold. You just feel pain and absolute discomfort, the strongest possible feeling of, I don't want to be here. And that's a sympathetic flight mode. I don't want to be here. I don't want to deal with this. But if we focus on the breathing right away and we do it properly, something very interesting happens. Instead of the panic taking over or us letting the panic to take over, we will slowly get into the charge of all these systems. We will be in charge of the breathing first, and through that we will calm the brain and let it understand that the threat is there, but we can manage it. It is just a discomfort, and we are not reacting anymore, we are responding. And this is the place where the real nervous system training happens. We will look at this deeper from two different perspectives. First perspective is brain waves. Our brain operates on a different brain wave lengths in different modes. You probably heard of delta, alpha, theta. All of them are connected to a certain processes that are happening and certain mode the brain is trying to achieve through those brain wavelengths. If we go from the slowest ones, delta brain waves, that's our deep sleep. That's where the body recovery is happening and body is pretty much not really aware of what's going on. We are switched off towards the environment. A little bit faster theta waves are this state between being awake and being asleep. Sometimes when we can't even tell what is real and what is not, is mostly happening when we are either drifting into the sleep or we are slowly, progressively waking up. Also, in theta brain waves, the REM sleep is happening, the mental processing and sorting out memories and so on. Theoretically, we can get into theta waves also through a deep meditation. Then there are alpha waves. They are again a little bit faster waves. Those are deep focus and meditation when we focus on our breaths and we're trying to clear our head. Beta brain waves are our daily functioning. That's where we are normally operating. That's where we are solving problems, and most of the cognitive action is taking place in beta brain waves. These trigger beta activity. And lastly, we have gamma waves. They are associated with peak cognitive functioning, focus, memory, and increased perception, and really high mental activity with clarity. It is something we could even call a transcendental experience if we stay there for a prolonged time. It is something like a higher level of cognitive processing, and people who have abnormalities in gamma waves or some disruptions, this is very commonly associated with Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, some forms of autism, and even schizophrenia. Remember the gamma waves, those will be very important. The second perspective we can look at the cold exposure experience through is our neural states, flow, fight, flight, and freeze modes. Full explanation of these states I have a separate video for, so you can check that out for a deeper understanding of this hierarchy. What is important for us, when we enter the cold water, we are automatically within seconds going into sympathetic flight mode. Escape, there is an absolute imminent threat right now, right here. And theoretically, this is true. We can't stay there for too long, but we still have a little gap before it will become actual threat to our life by hypothermia, for example. We can still manipulate this through the breathing and get our mind into a calm state. The key point is short and sharp inhale with a long, slow exhale. Ideally, we do the exhale through the perched lips because we have parasympathetic receptors on our lips, and if we trigger them with this air flow through, like we are trying to blow a candle or blow into a feather very gently, by triggering these receptors, we are automatically getting calmer. Maybe you notice that if you're a parent with your baby, babies like, or kids in general, probably adults as well, but well, you got to try that. If you very gently rub lips, it's very calming for the babies. So we want to calm down. However, this is where the brain waves come in. We don't want to go to alpha state to meditate the threat away. We can't make ourselves believe that it's not cold, I'm fine. Well, first of all, it is cold, and second, you are not fine. You are not supposed to try to meditate out of it. You're supposed to go through it and reach the gamma state. If we do this breathing within 10-15 cycles, maybe for 1.5 up to 2 minutes, with a short sharp inhale and long slow gentle exhale, we will get to the state where the gamma brain waves will start to be more prevalent, and we will be in this supercharged cognitive mode, extremely focused, on the peak of the focus and performance, however, calm. There is no noise and there is no chaos in the head anymore. We are not avoiding the discomfort by trying to believe or make ourselves believe that it's not cold, it's okay. We are accepting it as it is. When we get into that ice, this discomfort, this pain, it has two factors. It has the emotional element and the informational element. And the point is to dissociate them. Eventually, after these 2 minutes of a proper breathing, we get to a stage where We know it's cold, we accept it, but the emotional reaction is not there anymore. After 2 minutes of a proper breathing, you are aware it's cold, but it's not affecting you on the emotional level anymore because you separated the information from the emotion. The freaking part is over, and people usually actually tend to stay longer than the 2 or 3 minutes, which can have some benefits, but we'll talk about it in a second. But they are fine. They are there, they are sitting there, and the time is passing very differently. And after maybe 4-5 minutes, they are actually surprised how much time already passed. And they are, and this is the most key important point for this experience to be successful, they are not running away from the cold. They don't finish because they have to. They finish the dip because they made peace with it and they can leave. And that's when you can let it go, when you don't have to run away anymore. And that's your win. That's how you learn to control that instinctive reactions of your body, and you switch to actually being able to respond based on what you want from your body to do. Cold exposure has many physiological benefits. First of all, it really strongly activates the sympathicus, the fight-flight response, and therefore the compensation afterwards is, because there was high sympathetic action, there will be a big dip in the sympathetic and the parasympathetic will take over, which really helps to promote recovery and rest. That's why after this kind of experience, people feel for the rest of the day fairly mellow and relaxed. At the same time, it is triggering release of very interesting molecules in the body. We have uptake of white blood cells, which is our main immunity responders, and that's just amazing immunity boost, which we can get just by spending a couple of minutes in the cold. We also release cold shock proteins, which help to protect the cells and support recovery and healing. On the hormonal level, we have strong release of dopamine. Dopamine is a molecule many times presented as a reward molecule. However, it's more like a motivation. You do certain action, and by releasing dopamine, because it feels good for the body, it motivates you to do the same action again. That's an evolutionary mechanism that is still in us. In these days, when instant gratification from scrolling and fast food and all the possible sugar bombs we can get anywhere, that's a cheap dopamine that doesn't really require any action. And to reboot and restart the system with a proper reward-based motivational dopamine response, which is the natural way, the ice bath is an absolute king in this. So the dopamine release by the cold exposure is actually not spiking the dopamine and then crashing it back down like most of the stimulants do, but it creates longer period of elevated dopamine for up to 4, maybe even 6 hours. They say that it's even stronger dopamine response than from cocaine, but I don't know, so that's only theoretical for me. Many people feel very energized and very sharp focused after the ice bath, but not in a hyped way, but in a very mellow and pleasant way, which is also because they reached the gamma state, and those waves are exactly that. For the practical use, almost everybody can have a cold shower, and because the cold shower is not reaching as low temperatures as the ice bath, you can have cold shower pretty much every day. You want to focus on breathing and you want to only leave once it's not bothering you anymore. So you have that win in that situation. Cold shower is okay pretty much every day, especially because it's really hard to overdo it for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons being that the water is usually not reaching that low temperatures. The other thing is that you are not dipped inside, so you're not losing that much of a core temperature. Many people report hating showers even more because the water is running on your body, which compared to the ice bath, when you're sitting there, there will be a layer of a little bit more heated water created between you, your skin, and the cold water, unless you are moving. If you will stay still, this will happen. And that makes for some people the ice bath itself more acceptable than the cold shower. Even the temperature of the water in the shower is nowhere close to the ice bath. Regarding the full ice bath, how long do you want to stay in? The mental benefit is pretty much reached once you reach that state we are talking about, when you already accepted that it's not bothering you anymore and you can leave, but you don't have to leave. That's all that needs to be done. That will be usually within 2.5 minutes. The physiological benefits can have increased efficiency up to 5 minutes, but it's not really necessary, and anything close to 8 or above is absolutely not recommended, and there is no added benefit to it. Until 2 minutes, the core temperature in the ice bath is not affected much. After 2 minutes, it becomes more critical and you need to really focus on the warm-up, which is extremely important. Regardless of what time you spend there, you need to warm up, and the longer you stay, it goes exponentially higher. Otherwise, you might experience shivers for the whole rest of the day, because just layering clothes on top of you is not going to cut it. The cold is coming from inside because you lost the core temperature. So you need to warm up from inside with a movement. Squats, burpees, push-ups, any kind of movement, even up to 8 or 10 minutes of continuous movement, depending when and how fast you will start to feel that you are warming up again. Temperature of the water will obviously matter a lot as well. If you're going for 1, 2 or 3 degree water, that's very intense and you really should limit the time spent there to the absolute minimum to get the benefit, so 2-3 minutes. If we are talking about a cold dip, which I wouldn't call ice bath anymore, but cold dip around 8-10 degrees Celsius, you can stay longer, but always be mindful that the temperature, even 1-2 degree change, will have a massive impact on how fast your core temperature will be dropping there, and you need to take that into account. When we talk about timing, we also want to put it somewhat into the schedule of the training or of our week. Cold exposure right after training is absolutely not recommended. If you have a cold shower, for all those reasons I said before, that's okay. You can have that even every day after the workout or at night before bed, or just have a normal shower and finish with cold. That's fine for every day. If you do ice bath right after training, you are actually suppressing the recovery processes because you are lowering the inflammation. The inflammation in that moment is something we want to have there. So you don't want to get that inflammation suppressed by the ice bath because it will definitely impair your recovery. At the same time, there might be lowering of your testosterone and growth hormone response from training by doing the ice bath. On the other side, if you do ice bath for 2-3 minutes right before strength training, that is showing great results for testosterone and growth hormone boost. However, that's really impractical for most people to do the ice bath and then go to do the strength training within next half an hour or an hour. If you can do that and you have that option, amazing. If you can't, just think about ice bath as a separate session from your training. Just don't do it right after and take at least 4-5 hours break in between, or do it on your rest day. Once in a week, once in 2 weeks, or maybe even twice in 1 week, it's okay. But remember, this is just a tool that is supposed to help you, and more doesn't necessarily mean better. If you do ice bath once in 2 weeks and you have a cold shower every day, that's a great recipe for amazing immunity. If doing ice bath is absolutely impossible, you can do a little trick that has really similar mental benefit effects, and that is dipping only your hands or dipping your face into cold water. For that, you only need a small bag of ice cubes. You put them into a bowl, you dip your hands in, you focus on the breathing, and you try to get at least 2.5 minutes in. For some people, this is way worse than a full ice bath. I've experienced people who were not able to have hands dipped under, even though they were neck down in the ice, but hands were just that critical part that got them freak out. But if they put the hands out, suddenly they were okay. So all the neural connections and the sensitivity of hands will play a huge role. If you want to only do hands, that's not the easier version. It's low cost version, but the mental benefits are amazing. The physical, not as much. The other option is to dip your face into the ice water. You would definitely not do that for up to 2 or 3 minutes just because of the sake of breathing. However, even when you do it, be very careful, because that cold shock can rapidly lower your heart rate and you might get dizzy. So either do it seated, or ideally do it with some other people around. So if there is some kind of reaction you were not counting on, you are still safe. The face dipping is also great for the skin. As it is obvious at this point, cold exposure is so much more mental training than physical. It helps with hormones. It is a direct training for your nervous system. And for me personally, the biggest benefit is that if you can deal with that kind of intense discomfort, you will be also able to deal with any other stuff in your life easier, because just through the breathing, you can learn how to control your states. Maintaining control under high pressure and stress applies to a lot more than just fitness. It applies to tough conversation, deadlines, or possibly some high risk security situations. So pretty much any life event that would trigger an emotional reaction for you will be way easier to be handled if you have practice in the cold exposure training and you know how to be in charge of your neural states. So remember, focus on the breathing. It's not about proving toughness. Longer doesn't mean better. And the question you should be asking yourself is, how fast can I get into this state when I'm in the ice, or then eventually if some emotional event happens in life. My name is Paolo. Thank you for watching. Please send this video to 2 people. First one, somebody who you think would really benefit from the cold exposure training. And second one, just somebody who you really would like to suffer that. And don't tell them who is who. If you have any comments, questions, reach out or comment under the video. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.